Hello, Rob Watson here, and I'm just out and about in Leicester, and I thought I would take a break at the DMU campus. It's nice and green, it's nice and quiet. The sun's come out, and it's a bit breezy, but it's a nice breeze. We've had a few weeks where it's been a bit grey and wet, but make the most of the weather when you get the chance. That's my motto. Um, I thought I'd do an update on where I am with the Build Back Better programs, the Leicester Build Back Better programs and Leicester Stories, and just a bit of an update really on how it's going and what I'm hoping to be able to start putting together over the next couple of weeks in terms of a set of programs that explain what the process is and how the idea of building back better here in Leicester is working. One of the things that we did a couple of weeks ago was to go out and record some vox pops, and I'm going to follow up with that next week as well and get out and do a few more. And in that process, even though we didn't do a huge amount of them, we found out really that there is a blank spot in public awareness of the whole concept and the whole challenge of thinking through what the normal will be after the pandemic and what kind of things may need to change. And one of the things that's kind of given me a bit of a kick to kind of focus and carry on with this is yesterday there was the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change report, which was published, which basically said, we're in the red zone. The red lights are flashing. Climate change is real. Climate change is here, and climate change is going to bring about massive impact for our social life, how and in what way we do things. And so Peter Vallance, the chief scientific officer for the UK government, published a piece in the Guardian, which basically said, we can't carry on as we are, and we can't keep doing things the way that we have been doing them. We need to rethink through our whole approach to our social organisation, and particularly our impact on the environment and the world around us. And that kind of is a message I want to really now start to take forward, and to suggest that within that whole dynamic of change, that our media needs to be a crucial part of that as well. Excuse me. So the idea that we can carry on supporting a one-sided, narrow, one-dimensional model of media and engagement with one another through media really needs to be challenged, and really needs to be we need to provide for an alternative. And I suppose that's what Leicester Stories is trying to do and be part of. It's not necessarily the only answer. There's lots of other solutions, but it's my attempt, and the people who are volunteering on the project and contributing to the project, our attempt to try and shape something which is different, and to try and ground it in a few principles which we think are sustainable and accountable for the future. So our model of sustainable media, our mainstream corporate-driven commercial media, whether it's public service media run by the likes of the BBC, or whether it's commercial media run by the likes of Netflix, which is kind of globalized, and the pressure is to be always globalizing our media, it's great. It has a real, brings something that is, I'm a fan of. I like movies, I like TV series, I like games. There's lots of things that I think benefit us. But the danger is it's kind of lifted off so far from the ground, and so far from people's everyday experience, that it's not possible to participate in our media directly. You have to go through filters and channels and layers, and that there is a lack of investment in grassroots, civic, mutual, lived experience media. It tends to be something which is done on a kind of corporate basis. And so one of the things I've learned about through the Build Back Better process is the kind of charities and the community groups I'm working with and the mutual aid groups that I'm trying to foster some kind of relationship with are really kind of, they retain and think really only in terms of marketing and press and PR, which I think are part of the problem, to be honest, is that they're not responsive, is that they're increasingly narrow, they're identified by a sense of journalism. So it becomes something which is focused really only on the number of clicks that you can generate, the eyeballs, the attention that you generate. The articles are written on the basis of promoting division and indignation rather than looking for solutions. And there's some really great examples of solutions-based journalism and media practice out there, but it's not easy to do. And certainly it's not easy to do on a grassroots level here in a place like Leicester, where a lot of the population of the city and the residents of the city are kind of quite distrustful of many forms of media and professionalised media. So they don't connect with it, they don't share the values that it works towards, they don't see how it operates, it seems very distant. And I suppose what community media tries to do is to open up a bit of a space in which we are able to share some commonality, where we're able to approach things on the basis that they are part of our existence, our neighbourhood experience, and not something which is done to us or written about us. So, the whole kind of, you see this with Channel 4 and Channel 5, and kind of programs are produced by a very professionalized form of production company who come into an area and then leave. So whether it's they track kind of something which is a particularly relevant in the news at any particular time, and they come in and look for stories about that, but then afterwards they're gone. And what we really need is a layer of media which is retained within our neighborhoods. It's about place-based belonging. It's part of that social economy model where, we talked about the Preston model, where the idea is that we try and encourage wealth to stay in our neighborhoods and in our towns and in our cities. And the same principles apply to our media. Why we have so few independent, locally owned radio stations in the UK. What's happened. We've given it away to corporate conglomerates, and they produce a very narrow, sterile form of content, which is not locally relevant and isn't. I don't think it will be suited to the demands of the climate crisis changes that we're going to have to take. And there's a crucial element, is that who do we hold accountable? Is it people like us in our diversity, in our communities, who live and work and walk through and walk through the same streets, use the same shops, travel on the same buses, make the same kind of changes? Or is it, quite frankly, is it billionaires jetting around the world who control the debate and the discussion through filter organisations and shadow think tanks and public relations agencies? Or is it, do people directly have the opportunity to walk into their local media organisation and become a member of that organisation and take part in that and share their own stories? So there's a kind of, we've got commercial, we've got public service, but what we really need is for the climate challenge to be focused on community, civic and mutual aid media, which is at that level of kind of the neighbourhood, the town, the city, and it isn't given the challenge of competing internationally for things. It's kind of, it's something which is rigorously enforced, that it's done at the lowest level. So the parish, the ward in the city, these are the streets, the high streets. These are the levels at which we now have the technology to do this stuff. I can sit in a part of Leicester and I can record something and post it to YouTube, but I can easily watch something from Tokyo or from the south of France or from South America, wherever it is, we've made that transition to a media which can be created and produced by people in their own terms. What that needs, though, is a massive investment in media skills and literacies, and that we really need to be training people how to do this responsibly, how to do it accountably. So it's not just a load of weirdos and nerdy-wells using social media as a way to get, kind of create a kind of a kind of culture of grievance, and that's misinformation. And we need an honesty to it, and we need an accountability to it, and we are accountable in person. We don't hide behind fake accounts. We don't hide behind avatars. We are ourselves, and that needs to go right the way through our public bodies and organizations, and stop hiding behind a brand, stop hiding behind a badge of identity which is created for you. You kind of have to put yourself out there, and for a lot of people that's going to be a challenge, and we need to foster an environment in which people learn how to do that in ways that are responsible and nurturing and encourage development. So it has to be a developmental approach. So the climate crisis, sorry, the kind of wind's just picked up here. It's a bit of a wind tunnel. The climate crisis is a wake-up call. We have to do things differently. We have to change and reimagine a way that we can use our media in a more positive, a more joyful, and a more constructive approach, so that we reward what's good and we stop being manipulated by people who want to focus on our divisions and our differences all the time. Yes, those differences exist, those differences are real, but our challenge is to understand and comprehend those differences, not to use them as a wedge to drive people apart, as often our mainstream media does. And that's one of the reasons why people are distrustful of our mainstream media. So there's there's a lot to be built on and done as we renew normal, build back better, whatever it is that we want to call that. And we really need to think about how we can shift the dial from a kind of corporate media approach to a community-driven approach. How we get more people involved and participating, more people sharing their stories, more people saying and relating to each other in a way that is not mediated by pre-cooked ideas, so that we're in a position where we can take our experiences and use that as a learning opportunity, so that we can take it forward and give it some direction. I mean, look, the challenges of climate crisis are immense, and we have to re-socialise, and we have to learn very quickly. And other countries are well ahead of us in this respect, and here in the UK we have to do this very quickly. We've got maybe 5 years to shift our public conception of what and how we do things in order to mitigate climate change and to reduce our economy and our society to a zero carbon level. But that includes education and learning about media as much as it includes education and learning about electric vehicles or renewing your gas boiler. We have to have a whole infrastructure out there for people to tell their own stories, discuss and debate things, exchange views, and to learn from one another. So I'm hoping that the Leicester Build Back Stories project kind of gives a few hints of what might be relevant and what might be important in dealing with that. And I think it's a time to double our efforts to figure out what's going to work and what doesn't. If you want to get in contact with me, you can email me at robwatson@decentered.co.uk, or you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram if you go to Decentered Media on Twitter or Instagram, and the website is decentered.co.uk. So hopefully hear from you soon, and watch out for more of these videos, and listen out for more podcasts from Leicester Stories. Leicester Stories is leicesterstories.uk. Speak to you soon.